You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Cantina Cast and episode 234, the Solo Reaction Show. So tonight we're going to do a quick rundown of our initial reactions to the movie overall, story, characters, music, and of course over the next several weeks we're going to be breaking down the characters in greater depth, much like we did with Rogue One and The Last Jedi. So, of course, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, the big shot gangster who's putting together a crew himself, Mr. Jonesy. Jonesy, how's it going tonight?
It's going well, man. You can't get out of this crew once you're in. So buckle up, baby.
You're in this for life. So yeah, we're recording this on May 25th. So happy Star Wars Day for A New Hope and Return of the Jedi, as a matter of fact. But before we do get into the show, we did want to just bring up one small bit of news that kind of came up here, and then we'll kind of get into the reaction show. But we thought it was relevant just because of everything that's going on. But The Hollywood Reporter, as of yesterday, so this is May 24th, is reporting that James Mangold is set to write and produce a Boba Fett movie. So this shouldn't be a big surprise for anyone. I think we've talked about this for years now, to be honest. I mean, this is like one of those movies that's always just been out there.
Keeps surfacing.
Lingering and resurfacing and just getting recycled. Whenever things get slow or they need a good news lead.
That's about right.
But it's from The Hollywood Reporter. So there's, usually with The Hollywood Reporter, if there's, smoke, there's probably fire. And I don't know how much fire there is. But Jones, when you saw this, what did you think about it? Was this something that was expected at least right on the heels of like the premiere of the night before the premiere of the movie?
Yeah, that wasn't a surprise. I was surprised we didn't get more other ones, especially with some of the, as people started seeing the movie and some of the results of the movie from Solo came out, that we didn't start seeing just a slew of other reports confirming or speculating further. But yeah, this one's got a little bit more to it than some of the other ones do. And Boba Fett keeps surfacing. It's a character that's not really been explored as an adult in the new canon so much as he was when he was a young adolescent. So Mangold's an interesting choice if that's real or not, though. Logan was, really, really good.
Yeah, Logan was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, and you can't argue with The Martian either. So, I mean, if we were to get one, if we were to do a Boba Fett movie, I don't really know what the story would look like until in my head, but someone like Mangold would be an interesting choice to try to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't want to like overbake this because it is not confirmed by anyone outside of The Hollywood Reporter. But it would be an interesting storyline for sure, because I think now with Solo out of the way, and we're going to get into a whole bunch of spoilers here in a minute, the lack of Boba Fett presence in that movie makes you really wonder, like, if they do go down this route, are they going to go a completely different angle and, show us something that really has no connection or, maybe tertiary type connection between Solo and Boba Fett? Because and I think I mentioned this in Discord today, but now that we've seen Solo, and if you go back to the added scene from A New Hope, where he goes out or Han Solo goes out into the hangar to call for Jabba, and Boba Fett's there, and there's like zero reaction. He's just standing there, and you got to think that if they had any kind of run-in in the past, that reaction would be very different.
Yeah, sure, and we know that Solo worked for Jabba for presumably quite a while, so. Mm-hmm. That their paths would cross and they wouldn't necessarily be at odds with one another seems reasonable. And maybe slight competitors if Boba wasn't doing the total bounty hunter thing. Seems unlikely since he was doing it back in the Clone Wars and all that. But they can take that movie in a few interesting directions. So we'll see if anything comes out of it.
So the cynical part of me wondered if, based on what we were seeing with the reviews, on right before the night of, if this wasn't released as maybe to entice people that didn't know whether or not Boba Fett was in the movie to somehow think that maybe he was, and that would spark some people. I don't know if that's true or not, but it just seems weird that they would announce that on the heels of the movie, going into that like that.
Yeah, that's pretty peculiar. But then again, anything for clickbait these days, right?
Yeah, that's true. Well, so we will. I guess we'll just wait and see how that all plays out, and if we get anything here recent. But I don't know. I'd be pretty excited to see a Boba Fett movie. It's just one of those characters that's always been really cool, and I know it's got a huge fan base. I mean, there's websites and Instagram pages and everything else that's dedicated to it.
Well,
So-
it's a character
or to him, I should say.
Yeah, it's a character that you can do different things with too. You can explore different ways of storytelling and different styles of storytelling too, because it's such a different character than one that we've followed around for the last 40 years. So,
Yep.
and when we see Solo was a very different movie as well from what we're used to. So you could see where they could really take these in some very different directions in varying degrees of how dark or lighthearted they want some of these to be. So I think from that perspective, it can be really, really interesting if they were to start pushing down that path and getting serious about it.
Yeah, for sure. And that's really all we got this week for news. So we will be right back.
Maybe you notice you have a little less hair than you used to have, but you're not sure there's a real solution. The thing is, there are 2 clinically proven medications that let you keep your hair. And now, they're inexpensive and easy to get. You don't need to lose your hair if you don't want to. And that's why I have to tell you about Keeps. For 5 minutes now and just $1 a day, you'll never have to worry about your hair loss again. Getting started with Keeps is so easy. Sign up takes less than 5 minutes. Just answer a few questions, snap some photos, a licensed doctor remotely reviews your information and recommends the right treatment for you, all without leaving your couch. Keeps offers generic versions of the only 2 FDA-approved hair loss products out there. Some of you have probably tried them before, but you never got them this easy for this price. Keeps is only $10 to $35 a month. Plus, you get your first month free. One hell of a deal for getting to keep your hair. There's no reason to put this off any longer. Stop hair loss today the easy way with Keeps. To receive your first month of treatment free, go to keeps.com/cantinacast. That's KEEPS.com/cantinacast. That's a free month of treatment at keeps.com/cantinacast. Keeps hair today, hair tomorrow.
So let's get to the main topic. The reason why we're all here today are Solo reactions. So before we go into like the Solo movie itself, let's talk about our movie experiences. I got a chance to see it last night. I know you did as well.
Right.
So where did you go? Who did you go with? What was the overall atmosphere for you when you guys went?
We went to the Alamo Draft House here in Houston and went with some friends of mine from dance company as well as my work buddy, Jesse. And so we got together.
Hey, so are they, sorry, Jen, are they hardcore? How would you rate them in terms of fans?
They are not hardcore. One of the guys that was a little more hardcore, he wasn't able to come, but yeah, they're not really hardcore. They follow it well enough. They follow it through me. And so we talk a lot about it through the show. I got at least one of them listening to the show now every once in a while. And I think it's testing his fandom a little bit, but
in a good way or a bad way?
I think in a good way. It's very much in the minutia. And for folks who aren't used to listening to Star Wars podcasts or reading Star Wars in depth, that can be a little taken aback of, wow, I don't know what you guys are talking about, but it sounds kind of interesting. So it's fun though. But yeah, so we went to the draft house. We had a few guys there. The Rockets were on TV, so we were watching the game, which is great about the draft house. But then also we ran into some friends that I have from the 501st and the Rebel Legion that were doing some costuming there. So as people would come out, so in the lobby, it was actually fairly not busy. But as people came out, you could just see that there were a lot of people in the theater. And they'd hung around. We did pictures and things like that. We posted a few out on social media as well. And so the kind of the pre-atmosphere was a lot of fun. We had a distraction with the basketball game going on because the Rockets are in the Western Conference Finals. And so that was a fun one though. But yeah, I mean, we had a chance just to kind of talk about what we expected in the movie before and a little bit about what's gone on in Star Wars and things like that. But generally speaking, getting ready for the movie, we were doing pretty well. And talking with some of the 501st guys, it was a lot of fun and trying to catch up with them. So what about you?
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So similar to yourself, I actually went with Imperial Moonwalker from Discord. So we met up there about an hour before at the Alamo Draft House in South Austin. So again, thanks to Imperial Moonwalker for driving out here, because it's quite a bit of drive for him from where he's at. But anyways, we went out to Alamo Draft House, kind of hung out in the bar area for a little bit. It's funny, I ran into all of the moms from my Cub Scout pack, so they were there, and asking me what I was watching, which they all knew what I was going to watch. And so I asked them if they were watching the same thing as a joke, and they weren't. They were there to see what's Melissa McCarthy movie? Yeah, she's got a new one out. Anyways,
I couldn't tell you. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's right. So we just kind of hung out, got caught up for a little bit. The 501st was there at the Draft House. So they were out there in full uniform, taking pictures outside, taking pictures right before you went into the theater. They were doing something more elaborate. Looks like they were setting up, and by the time I came out, they were already either seeing the movie or gone. I don't know. So I don't know what it was they were setting up. I don't know if it was a cannon on a tripod or something, but they were doing something something mischievous out there before we went into the movie. And our theater was completely sold out. And it's hard to really explain. Like, it was a weird theater experience for me, because I don't know if it was just the choice, the time that I picked or what, but usually when you go that first night and you get that very first showing, you're in there with a whole bunch of other fans. They may not be diehard fans, but they've obviously, put down the money and spent the time to wait in, at line at 11 p.m. on May 4th to buy the tickets, right? Because that thing sold out in minutes. So, I guess what I was expecting was more of a more active audience, and it was really quiet throughout. And I don't think that was indicative of the movie per se. It just maybe people were tired. I don't know what was going on, but I felt like I was the one that was out there laughing really loud when everybody else was, kind of quiet or just kind of more reserved than I would have expected. Was that pretty much the same thing for you, or was you guys get a good audience? Ours
was really, again, we were at the show with so we went to the 10:30 p.m. show. So the 501st and Rebel Legion guys were in our show with us. And I think they were sitting towards the back, because that was where a lot of the noise came from, the cheers and the big laughs and things like that, the folks that were really into it. And so ours was not quiet at all. It had a lot of moments where people were getting really amped up or really excited, especially at particular character moments. So that aspect in the theater. Now, it was not full though all the way. It was, I was guessing probably 85% full. And again, that's probably as we start getting a little bit later in the evening, that's more typical. And again, it's difficult to gauge popularity at the Alamo Drafthouse versus like a Cinemark or an AMC or one of the big theater chains, because they only have one or two screens of the movie usually. And then they're also, you're paying a little bit higher price of those tickets for a different experience too. So it's a little bit different. It's hard to gauge popularity of movies with Alamo, I think. Do you have the same experience?
I don't know. It really depends on the movie. I hate to say that, but generally this one here is like always sold out.
Oh, okay.
Very rarely do you get to just go, I'm going to go see a movie tonight. Nope. I mean, at least ours is just so packed. It's packed all the time, but all right, so let's get into this because I'm tired of talking about this. So that was our experiences. Let's get into movies. So sorry, I know you've waited already like 12 minutes for this part. So
it's a lot faster than usual, folks. You're welcome.
Yeah. So let me give you the disclaimer. So before we get started, we are going to spoil just about everything about the movie, and I mean everything. So this is your chance to close out your podcast app, turn off your radio, whatever. If you've not seen the movie yet, or if you're like me and have no shame in being spoiled, then by all means, come on in. The water's fine. So, I thought we'd start just by kind of getting an overall 30,000 foot view or impression of how we felt about the movie. And I know that's kind of broad, but how did you feel leaving that movie, I guess, as a general impression for it?
I think generally speaking, I thought it was pretty solid. It felt... the ups and downs, the peaks and valleys that you feel in a movie, especially when you're really engaged with, I didn't sense as much of it in Solo. So the sequences were exciting, but they weren't overwhelmingly exciting. And the slower parts weren't overwhelmingly slow. So it just kind of rode this line through the middle. And I think that was okay. It just didn't spike for me much at all. But I did enjoy it. I mean, the overall character interaction and the way that the key characters interacted, I thought were all fantastic. They all worked. And so it met my expectations in a lot of those areas. We had a few issues, like it was really, really dark, like in the Membon scene. So it was really tough to see something. So I'm going again on Saturday with another set of friends. So I'm curious at a more general theater. So I'm curious to see if I'll have the same experience there, but I had a little bit of hard time following some of that.
Yeah. You mean like where it was jumping around?
No, just actually seeing the picture, it was just so dark.
Oh,
I had a really hard time just seeing it and making out what the expressions were. So when there were explosions and things like that, I could see it and understand what's going on. But when they were having conversations, especially as he met Beckett, a little harder to see. So I'm just wondering if it was just that environment more so than the movie itself. So I'm hoping to give that another test.
Yeah. Well, so for me, I think overall, and I'm going to use the word fun because it really was what the movie was for me. And I'm not using that as a parachute to absolve the movie of any criticism whatsoever. I want to make that very clear because I've seen a lot of these reviews, even as early as last week when they were, people were leaking out some of these reviews when they shouldn't. And then we had the media, when they lifted that up, we got the full, we got to see everything behind the curtain in terms of the reviews. And I think a lot of people were kind of hiding behind the word fun. And I mentioned it very slightly, I think, in the last show. But it really was a fun movie. Now, again, it has its moments where, and we'll talk about that here in just one second, where I didn't do well, I guess for me. But overall, if you take it, look at it in it, totality, it's as a whole, I guess, right? Everything all together and all in. Yeah, I thought it was a great movie. I thought it was a good movie. It was a fun movie. I left there. I found myself smiling through a lot of the movie. Which I can't say, happens a lot for, not just Star Wars movies, but just movies in general. And I credit that to Kazdan and Alden Ehrenreich for his performances. Right. But, if you compare this to a lot of the other summer movies that we get, it's kind of head and shoulders above what we normally get as far as trash go. We get a lot of trash during the summer, right?
Sure.
We get these really high end or high budget type special effect movies where there's really not a whole lot of character development. It's hard to really like a lot of the story elements themselves, and that you're just going in there because you want to see explosions and special effects, which obviously this movie had. But I thought they had a lot more going for it than we typically get for summer movies. So from that, I think the criticism that I have really is just that at times it didn't. I guess in the first, let me just get to the first act, right? So the first act was a little clunky for me. It was a little slow.
I agree with you.
Yeah, it took a while to get ramped up. It was very dark. And I think, I think the darkness was intentional, and we'll come to that when we get to cinematography. Sure. We'll talk about that in a minute, or later, but it was a little dark. It wasn't really flowing very well. It felt a little like, just clunky. And it was the entire time I was watching this, I had this Lord and Miller thing in my head. Like, okay, I found myself trying to pick out, I wonder if that was Lord and Miller, or I wonder if that was Ron Howard. I wonder, where they had to make the cuts. Are these reshoots? Are they not reshoots? That kind of spoiled it for me, I think, to some extent, because I found myself being too critical of a lot of those scenes. So I think I walked away from the first act, though, thinking could have been better.
Yeah.
By the second act,
I had the same type of reaction to the first. It was a little slow to get going. I wasn't feeling it so much. The speeder chase in particular, it just wasn't quite doing it for me. Some of the conversations things going on were fine. I didn't have a lot of problems with that, but you're right. It just didn't, for an opening sequence, and especially the opening titling sequence. And I know some people have really liked that. It was basically a crawl without the crawl. So
yeah,
a little bit different. And I'm curious to see what I'll think about it the second time through, because it was a little off-putting. But as I was reading, I was like, okay, this works, but I kind of wish I just had a crawl. So it would have worked. I mean, it would have worked perfectly to bring you up to speed about where where we're at in the story. I mean, you could have argued that this, for Rogue One, you could have used the same thing, and there was a fan edit that did something like that. But it was, when I look back at Rogue One, like the first half of the movie just didn't do it for me. But then the second half was like one of the most awesome Star Wars we had seen in a long time. This one didn't have that type of feel. It was I'd put it above Rogue One in the first half of the movie phase, but it still just took a while to get going. And what I was going through my head is what would common people or people who aren't all into Star Wars think about this? Is this engaging? And I started getting myself distracted because the movie wasn't engaging me quite enough.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly where I was. I found I kept leaving the movie to go back to what I knew about the movie and trying to analyze it. And I did the same thing with The Last Jedi. I think I mentioned that during my first viewing. So, and I guess we didn't say this, but both of us have only seen the movie once. I mean, we're really on the heels of this thing. So, Take all this with a grain of salt, because I think our opinions will probably change quite a bit once we've seen it a couple more times here. If I could just real quick though, I really felt like the middle though was the best part. Like even better than, like, the second act was way better than even the third. The third act was pretty good. It was solid. It was fun, and it kind of trickled off towards the very end, which was, I guess, is probably criticism, but. But man, that whole part when they finally decide they're going to head to Kessel, from the moment that happens and they land on Kessel all the way until they escape the mall, that was just, I mean, I couldn't even keep up with the pacing. Like, I was totally into that movie, and for every shot and there was one-liners. I mean, great dialogue was coming in. The cinematography was great. The acting was great. Everybody was just clicking. And then, you lead it up into that whole space thing, which was really neat because we didn't really get to see that in a whole lot of these movies before, with the gravity well. But that whole second act was just some of the best Star Wars that we've seen in a long time. And I, no disrespect to any of the other movies that came out, but I don't know. I was all in on that second act. I thought it was awesome.
It was really exciting. I mean, and everyone had their part to play, right? And so it was just fun seeing all the characters starting to exert kind of their personality in it as well, and interacting and playing off one another. And then the action sequences were a lot of fun. I mean, seeing Chewbacca in action was long overdue for a lot of people, right? So seeing him go crazy was one of the most fun parts of the movie, I thought, as well. But yeah, it really did. That pacing was insane. I agree with you. I was trying to keep up of where we're at, where we're going, where's everybody at, where do we need to be. And at one point, I just like, okay, I just got to chill out. We're going to get there. Where is this going? And and we'll talk about the third act a little bit. It got a little clunky there at the end, trying to, I think, to do a little too much. And this kind of goes back to, this is a very different type of Star Wars movie of this. It really did feel like a heist movie. And I didn't think about this until I had a little rest last night and came in fresh this morning. I was like, for the first time, we really did kind of get a different movie that is outside of the norm for Star Wars. It had all the action and all the humor and things like that in it, but we actually had a true heist movie. And that was, the more I thought about that, I was like, I think I enjoyed that. I think I liked that.
Yeah, it was, yeah, I would agree. It was very different. And even more so than like with Rogue One, we were told we were going to be getting this like military, war is hell kind of movie. Right. And we didn't really get that.
No, yeah.
And that was probably because, I think that was the initial intent. And after the reshoots, I think what we got was still an awesome movie, but definitely not that. I mean, it was, sure, there were some struggles and, everybody died, but apart from that, I don't know, it didn't really feel like that. Whereas this one did feel, it did feel like you said, it was a train heist movie. It was a smuggler movie kind of thing, which was kind of cool. It was very different. It was different enough that it was different, but expected, I guess. It met that expectation.
Sure. It still had elements that were predictable, and it still had some elements that were, one of the things I could say positively about this is I didn't really have an eye-rolling moment in this movie. And Rogue One had one or two for me, and then some of the other ones have had them too. Even Force Awakens, right, where they snap into the old familiar like way too much. And while this one was very familiar, and it was fairly predictable of where it was going, but there was nothing that was so over the top that it pulled me out, and I rolled my eyes of saying, "Oh, come on, did we really have to do that?" And that's a big thing for Star Wars, because it is so easy, especially with a movie that's doing a lot of first and a lot of origins like this movie did. It's really easy for those things to quickly go over the top to where it pulls you out of it. And I thought the way that they did a lot of it, even with the blaster, I know some folks didn't really want to see Han's origin blasters, but even with the blaster in the Falcon, it still felt natural enough to where it didn't just completely suck you out of the story and just say, "Oh, come on, did we really have to do this? This is too much."
Yeah. So do you think some of that though is because they didn't take any chances? I mean, would you say that this movie was safe, that they played it safe in a lot of the like the story elements and where they took some of the characters? And I mean, did they take enough chances for you? And do you feel like that's why it didn't pull you out?
Well, when I think about the anthology series as a whole, I don't really know. This actually fits what I expected from the anthology. When they announced these, this is the type of movie I really expected to get more than anything else. A relatively, I hate using the word safe, but a movie that's very familiar, but you take some different types of story elements. So it did enough that said, okay, this is a heist type of movie. something I don't really get into all that much. I've liked some of them, like Ocean's 11 and things like that, but generally speaking, I don't get too much into them. But it kept me engaged enough that, yeah, it still felt like Star Wars as we were going through it. Now, some of that is the familiarity with the characters. But so was it too safe? Was it too familiar? There's a good argument for that. But at the same time, the whole premise of the story is familiarity, right? This is a character that we want to see where he came from, where he went to. And I feel like we got that. I feel like we got a good chunk of Han Solo and the crew around him, of where he was at one point and how he's becoming closer to where he's supposed to be, of where we saw him in A New Hope. And so I think from that, it was very successful in that regard. Is it too safe for you?
No, I don't think so. I mean, they didn't really go out. I mean, there was nothing cutting edge about the movie, and that's not, again, criticism. I think it's just fair. It really wasn't. And that's okay. I don't need meta in everything that I see, right? And this is one of the things that we talked about with Last Jedi. I don't need 8 layers of a character. I don't need to know that, there's different layers upon layers of storylines and callbacks to different tropes, and I don't need all that. I just need I need a good story. I need some characters, and I just want to be entertained, right? And I think that was my expectation going into the movie, and I think that's why I walked throughout the movie. I was smiling. I think I walked out of that movie pretty happy. I think if you went in with any more than that, I have a feeling you probably came out a little hurt, expecting more.
I get invested in who I'm with and whether they enjoy it or not. And so I was texting back and forth today with one of the guys that went with me, because his wife told me he didn't really enjoy the movie too much. And we talked a little bit via text. And I'm not going to go and change his mind. Some other folks want to change your mind or argue with you about why it's the greatest thing on earth or anything. I get it felt somewhat flat, right? And I think I described that before. It was, it was good, but it was solid, but it was a bit flat. The highs weren't all that high and things like that. And so, but it was interesting just getting their perspective. But when you go with people, especially if they're not as familiar with Star Wars, and this is kind of new territory for us engaging in fandom in this way, I feel very invested in how they're perceiving the movie, more so than even my own enjoyment, to where, and I don't want to say it gets in the way of my enjoyment, because I don't want to belittle that, because that's not their responsibility. That's my way of doing things. But I want them to enjoy it. I want them to have a good experience with it. But it's going to strike everybody a little bit differently, and that's all right too. But yeah, so I kept having that kind of creep in of like, okay, is everybody having a good time? Is everybody liking this? Because this is kind of my deal. They're here largely because
you've got to shepherd them through their emotions here.
Well, and the only reason why they're there is because, I invited them, like, hey, you guys want to do this? And they have some interest in it, but they probably wouldn't be out there at 10:30 on a work night doing this if it wasn't something I'd say, like, hey, this sounds exciting, and my enthusiasm for it,
Yeah.
So,
right. So if we could, let's just we can touch on the third act a little bit, and really just the whole last part of the movie. And there wasn't anything, again, it was better than the first. I don't think it was better than the second. I think they could have done more, especially with like the Enfys Nest reveal and, Viden Dross's kind of last moments, and Kira and her backstab, or I guess her double cross or whatever it was at that point. It didn't. I was expecting to kind of, because of all the adrenaline that I was coming off of with the second act, I was really thinking, okay, this is. I mean, I was already thinking about it. As soon as they made that jump into light speed, I was like, oh wow, I wonder how they're going to top that, right? Because that sequence. Right. And they never really did. That's kind of where it peaked, and it kind of just trickled off towards the end. And you kind of got a feeling that maybe there was a little too much focus on world building, and that's not really Kazan's thing. I mean, he's not really a world builder. He just provides a lot of details, right? It's just his type of writing. So that's probably not fair to say, but it felt like they were trying to set a lot of things up at the very end, when really all I wanted to do was just know or get more of, Han, Chewie, Lando, and all of that. Right. I don't know. It was a little slow, I guess, to kind of summarize it up a little bit. Not slower again than the first act, but it was a little bit slower. It didn't end as high as I was hoping it would.
Well, and then you get the obvious tells that are happening, like Beckett's going to be the first to betray. And we had called it, I think, on the hype show that I think we suspected that Kira was going to have something, and she didn't really turn on anybody, I suppose. She had her own agenda the whole time, but it was a that was also to be expected. Who's going to save the day? Well, clearly it'll have to be Kira because there's no one else, right? So
Right.
those started hitting, and it just got a little bit clumsy as you go through because they started telegraphing some of those things to you. And I'm not saying I think the execution of those was still pretty well done, but then it got a little bit formulaic. Then you really saw, okay, this is the writing on the wall. This is where we're going to go. And it was still fun and exciting, but you're right. The uniqueness of it, or the this new environment that we got during the actual Kessel run and in the final Kessel was a little bit lost. And then the movie started dragging just a little bit, and there were a few slow points. And one of my general favoritisms to this movie is that even the slower parts don't linger for long when they get a little slower. So there were a few moments I was like, okay, this is getting a little slow. And then it didn't take long before it kind of got back into speed. And I think for the third act, where it did slow down a little bit, it didn't take long for it to get back moving, even if it wasn't quite at the same clip we were expecting previously. But I got to tell you, man, when Maul showed up, the theater went nuts. I mean, absolutely bonkers. It went nuts. And no one recognized Sam Witwer's voice, which is interesting, because I was listening to another podcast and they had a hard time determining it was his voice too, but I recognized it instantly.
Oh,
and
I mean,
he was spot on. Now the look of Maul,
the laugh is what.
Oh yeah.
The laugh is like, if you don't get it from the first couple of words, when you hear him laugh, I mean, it's indistinguishable. You know exactly who that is, especially if you've seen the Clone Wars.
Yeah, he was so great. The acting in the Clone Wars was so great, and so it was really exciting to see that show up here as well. I liked that they kept the longer horns. The look in the face was a little bit different, so it was a little jarring and just what we've expected on screen. But Ray Park is, very different. This is 20 years after he recorded all that stuff for Phantom Menace, so it's a little bit different. But yeah, overall though, it was moving, and I thought it was still moving decently at it. But Kira's turn. I'm curious as your take on Kira. What did you think about Kira, maybe generally speaking, and then maybe in this third act in particular?
So for Kira, I thought Amelia Clark did fine, honestly. I've heard a lot of bad criticism about her character, and I don't know if it's people that are just ticked off because of Game of Thrones and, her acting there. That keeps coming up as, she's been terrible these last seasons or whatever. And I don't watch Game of Thrones. I think I've made that pretty clear on the show before, but I don't watch the show, but it just seemed unfair. Like a lot of the criticism, she wasn't bad at all in terms of acting. Now, the character herself, for Kira, they probably, I don't know, I wish they would have done more with her. I never really, she kind of got lost for me, to be honest. She got upstaged by a number of other characters that were just awesome in this movie. But I thought she held her own when she needed to. I think her better moments in the movie were really at the very end when, she was, using Terraskasi and fighting, and, she turned on Dryden and killed him and all that. I mean, that whole segment of it made up for everything else in the movie where I was just kind of like, okay, I get it. She's, his love interest, and now she's got, her own agenda, and,
right.
You can't really trust her. I mean, I think they did a pretty good job of playing that up. I just didn't care as much. And I don't know, that was really, again, it wasn't probably Amelia Clark. It was just the character itself. But I thought in the very end, I think it made up for it.
Yeah,
so, I walked away with, I guess, good impressions of her overall.
Yeah, I didn't get the impression of her ambitiousness, I think, is what I kept coming back to, what I was missing. So she didn't seem overly ambitious through the whole movie. And then all of a sudden at the end, it kind of came out. Now, you could argue that that's a master, I don't know what it is, person deceiver or whatever that
playing the long game, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But still, I'm okay with a little bit of foreshadowing and a little bit of, give me that edge. And I didn't necessarily get that edge from her. It felt like she was appeasing both sides, but it was always clear that she was on Han's side, at least to me. And so, so I think I just missed the ambition. I agree. I thought she was perfectly fine. I didn't have any problem with those parts, and she had some really good moments as well. Really liked the exchange in the Falcon when she got out of the seat for Chewie in particular. And the trying on the cloaks was always a fun one with the cape.
Yeah.
But I was just curious. I just missed the ambition. I was hoping to have a little more edge to her, so that turn made a little more sense and a little more gravity to it.
Yeah. Well, let's do this. Let's talk about the rest of the characters, and let's just get the big one out of the way. Thurm Scissor Punch
Stole the show.
Yeah, that was for you, Cab. No, we're not going to talk about. Maybe if there's time, we'll talk about Thurm Scissor Punch. So let's talk about Han. So Alden Ehrenreich, and I probably said that wrong. But Ehrenreich.
Ehrenreich. Yep.
Yeah, I'm still getting used to his name. What did you think about? So let me go first, if you don't mind.
No, please.
I really liked him, and I didn't know if I would one way or the other. I don't think I went in with any kind of preconceived notions about how well he was going to do, and I think in the back of my mind, I was worried. The only thing I was really worried about was whether or not I would be comparing him to Harrison Ford. No, not Han Solo. I was worried I was going to be comparing him to Harrison Ford, and you could argue they're one and the same person. I have to say that I don't even remember, with the exception of maybe one or two moments in the movie, that I ever felt like I was analyzing him in that way. And I think it's a testament to him, right? Yeah. Like, as soon as he got going, I was all in. I just bought it and completely, that just left my mind. And it's weird because, again, that was if I had to put one thing down on, and again, I was already spoiled for the movie, right? But if I had to put one thing down that I was going in and I was going to hone in on, it was him. And then I was going to hone in on Glover and his portrayal as Lando. And for both of them, well, I did it for Glover, I will say that. But for Alden, I didn't see it. And the character himself, so just talking about Han Solo at this time and age in his life, I thought they did a really good job. It almost felt like he kind of kept the movie going, and it was a series of, it was more of Han's life where somehow he figures out a way to get through it, right? And that was really cool to see. It's very subtle, and I think after I've seen it a few times, I'm probably going to catch more of that than I did the first time. But I just kept coming back to, every time the movie got a little slow, he was pulling it back. Somehow that character, Han Solo, just like he does in his, in the other movies, somehow figures out a way to get everybody on board and keep things going.
And I think Chewie was doing. I thought he did a great job. Was doing a little bit of that too, which was a lot of fun. We'll talk a little bit about Chewie.
Yeah.
But I agree.
Overall, I thought he did a really good job. Yeah. He had moments too. He had some moments where and again, I don't know if it was intentional, unintentional, but there were moments that, after the movie was over, I went back and started, thinking about him, looking at him, that kind of thing. And yeah, it was very similar to what I would expected from Han Solo. Again, not Harrison Ford, but with Han Solo.
There was a moment, it was really subtle, and he threw his hands up and kind of turned around, and Harrison Ford did that in one of the other movies too. And I was like, it was really subtle and barely noticeable, but it nailed it right. It just nailed it. And the biggest positive feedback I can give about this movie is I got to be honest, not one time did I think about Alden as Han Solo and didn't buy into it 100%, which, I mean, is a testament to him and a testament to the way they wrote the character too, and that they set this up to really do well. He was it. I didn't have any moments that spring to mind, and maybe I'll have a different opinion on that, tomorrow when I see it. But the way that he delivered everything was really on for where he was at. And again, when I was talking with some of the guys about this last night and today, it was like, well, I wanted to see a little bit more swagger and things like that. And what I had brought back to them was, but he's not got it all together quite yet.
Oh yeah, that was pretty clear.
Yeah. And so, you want to see those, and you get little tidbits of it here and there. And sometimes you get a lot more of it, but he's just not all the way there. But man, you get this clunky behavior, but this confidence that we're going to find a way to make this work. And it is not going to be pretty, but somehow, some way, we're going to figure out a way to make it work. And it sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't, and you roll with it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, kudos to that kid too, because, and I say kid because he's younger, but I mean, this was
tough.
I mean, a tough role, right? Going into this, knowing you're taking on Han Solo, just taking that on that mantle, and yeah, sure, he got several million for it, whatever. But, yeah, I mean, that's a big role to fill, some big shoes to fill, and I thought he did an outstanding job. He really did. He was very charming. I really liked the character. I liked him in that character. And like you said, I never got pulled out with the exception of like maybe one or two things. And it really wasn't negative. It wasn't like me going, oh, that was terrible, or, oh, that was so, wannabe Harrison Ford. It wasn't like that at all. It was just like, oh, it was more like, hey, that look right there is very similar to Harrison Ford. And then right back into the movie, I went. So yeah, I thought he did awesome. I thought, so let's talk about Chewie. So I said going into this movie, I was hoping this would be a Chewie movie, and I kind of felt like it was.
I agree.
He had his own set of moments.
He did. Right? He had lots of moments. It was fantastic.
Yeah. We got him and Chewie down. The whole Beast thing was kind of interesting. It was a different take on their origin, I guess, than what we had, from Legends. But I thought it was okay. I didn't mind it.
What did you think of the Shriwook exchange?
Oh yeah, speaking Shriwook, it's so funny. It's like I still want to know now more than ever how the heck, because I thought maybe we'd get some kind of story or just a line of how he knows it, and we didn't, unless I missed that.
No, we didn't get
but
one.
when he started talking about it, he started doing it, and they threw the subtitles up. I was cracking up. I thought it was the funniest thing ever. I thought he did a pretty good job as a Wookiee too, by the way.
It was great.
Yeah.
That was a bold decision to make, to try to do that, because there's a line in there about how campy is too campy, but it just fit. And I was really glad they gave us the subtitles. And we had talked on a previous show that we didn't want subtitles for the Wookiee talkings, but this was absolutely perfect because you got to see the broken speech patterns, and it wasn't, perfected or anything like that. And it was just, and again, our crowd had a good kick out of that and a lot of laughs on it. And that was really, and you're right, man, his guttural sounds were actually pretty good.
Yeah. If that was him, we can't.
I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt for right now.
Dubbed and sound
until proven otherwise.
Yeah. But it was good. That was one of the moments, I think, when looking back, I wonder how much of that was Lord Miller. Because it wouldn't.
That's a pretty bold,
it wasn't
bold
out of
movie. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't out of place, but it was definitely bold that they would go there and do that, because they've really never done that before. I'll probably get called out on that, but at least right now in the moment, I can't think of a time that they did something like that. So they surely didn't do it in the holiday special. So yeah, their first meeting was interesting. It was a different twist, and I didn't mind it so much. And I think from that point on, just them interacting, a boy and his dog kind of thing. I hate to say that. That's not no disrespect to Chewie, but you really got to see that the initial, friendship and how it started to grow and blossom. So
when you got to see Chewie as he was trying to free some of his people as well, you see that loyalty and that heart. So even though he's this beast, and clearly, we got the arms ripping off moment which to me fell a little short, although it did get a lot of laughs and cheers in our theater. I was like, oh, okay, I get it. But
yeah, the sound effects were pretty gruesome there.
Were.
Like, he had no doubt. Even before they showed it, you could tell what was happening.
Right.
So yeah, and then the moment before that, I think just before that, that's when he did the DDT or pile drive that guy's head right into the
Wookiee Rage, man,
into the ground.
Wookiee Rage.
Yeah, Wookiee Rage.
It was fun to see that passion in him get that moment of, trying to help others, and that while these guys are trying to do a score, and they're trying to, push their own agendas at the end of the day, that there are a few of them that have these hearts of gold that they want to do the right thing, and that they have a commitment to other people that they can't overlook. And as much as they want to ignore it, they really can't. And Chewbacca has always been, the epitome of the big heart. And you bring up the boy and his dog. Of course, he was modeled after George Lucas's dog, right? But it just the heart of the character has always been the core of Chewbacca and why people love him so much. But we got to see that little edgier side of him this time. But you still see that come through, especially in the moments of just Han and Chewie, and the exchange in the Falcon was perfect too. Of sitting in the co-pilot, the look they exchanged, like, yeah, this is magic, right?
Yeah, that I actually got. I didn't cry, but I got emotional. Like, that was a pretty special moment for me, and I didn't think. And I'd already seen it in the trailer. I'd already watched the clip of, was 190 years old. You look great. I'd seen that clip a million times going into this movie, but there was something about just being part of that whole experience. And again, it was in, Act 2, which, stood out for me. But yeah, when that happened and they sat down, they gave that exchange, it was like, whoa, I got chills. Like that was a pretty crazy moment for me. And I can't say that I've had one of those in a Star Wars movie, well, since The Force Awakens, really.
You don't get to you don't get to see those little looks very often, and you don't need to say anything. You have this look, and every once in a while in your life, you'll have these moments too, where you take a second and you get that little smirk on your face, like, yeah, this is something special. And so being able to see that, and they captured it perfectly. I mean, I'm right with you. It was spot on. It was really subtle, really short, really small, but it was perfect.
Yeah. And I need to go now at some point. I'm probably going to watch at least 2 more times. I'll watch this movie at least 2 more times, but then I definitely want to jump into A New Hope, Empire, and Return of the Jedi and watch them just for Han and Chewie, just to kind of see how that all fits in now. And, whether my perspective changes or whether I get, special feelings again now after having seen the movie that many times. But my guess is I will, because as I was watching that and now reflecting back on some of those scenes, I can see where they were, it gives more gravity, it gives more weight to those.
Even Force Awakens now.
Movies. Yeah, no, actually, yeah, good point. Even in that movie, that's right. Because now they're old, just 2 old dudes that have been buds forever at that point.
Yeah, losing your best friend. He lost his dog.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, that's sad. Too soon.
Yeah, so maybe from there, maybe we should shift over to Lando.
Right. Lando.
Yeah.
Wow. What'd you think, Donald Glover?
I was not prepared for him to have the speech. So we saw it on Saturday Night Live where it felt a little over the top, but he was channeling Billy D. And it was perfect, right? But it was a little over the top. I thought in the trailers, I really didn't get that impression that this was going to be that close to that. But oh my goodness, from like the very first line, he was locked in. And I thought he was the epitome of Lando Calrissian, and that confidence and that arrogance to him, and not beneath him to cheat. So, right. it was nice to see him kind of in this environment. But what was fun about it is that you got this him and Han are cut from the same cloth. At the end of the day, he's still kind of a loser sometimes. He doesn't get it right. And he tends to fall on his face numerous times as well, even though he has this air of success around him, and, thinking success breeds success, I suppose. But overall, I actually thought he did really well. He did not overshadow the rest of the movie or the rest of the characters like a lot of people were presuming that he would. Yeah. I thought he fit pretty well. My only criticism was he kind of got lost in the end, especially after L3's fate. And so we lost a little bit of him there, but the exchanges were still really good, especially between him and Han, and, especially the I hate you moment, which was pretty perfect.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah. So I think for me when he started off, and I mentioned this earlier in the show, but there was a couple of lines, and some of his very first lines that were almost, for me at least, they were almost too good. Like it sounded like it was Donald Glover doing an impersonation of, Lando Calrissian or Billy D. Williams, whatever. Take your pick, because they're pretty much the same character. But it took me out of it in as the movie went on, and really it was just the first couple of lines. I don't know. I'll have to go back and watch it again so I can nail down which ones. But then after that, it calmed down a little bit for me. Like everything else from there on was Lando, but it wasn't over the top. And I would agree that I was one of those people going into this because after seeing Saturday Night Live and seeing that skit that he did, I got really scared. Like, holy crap, he's like almost too good that I'm going to be only focused on how awesome he is, because we know that character is awesome already, right? And Kazan's writing it, so they're going to get their way and really make this guy shine even more than they did in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. But when after that first initial scene, and as the movie kind of went on, and you started, it got toned down a little bit. It was still amazing, awesome job all the way around. But it wasn't overshadowing. It wasn't upstaging. It wasn't overpowering in any way. He was subtle when he needed to be subtle. He was cool when he needed to be cool. He was Lando when he needed to be Lando. Right. He was just great. I thought he was really, really good. And the costumes were just over the top at times. The capes, that whole cape closet was amazing, and the number of them. I want to make one real quick comment. This is on the last outfit he's wearing. I've seen a lot of pictures now, and I haven't seen it conclusively, at least not as of this podcast, but I think those are Ewok gliders on his shirt.
Okay.
The shirt that he's wearing at the very end of the movie. I want to say they're Ewok gliders. So hopefully we'll get to the bottom of that, because that's really important.
Now I'm going to be looking the entire
character.
time like, what is he wearing?
Yeah. So next, when you go see it for your second, third showing, whatever it is, look at the pattern. Tell me if I'm wrong. I may be nuts, but I'm almost positive that's an Ewok glider on
the
his
one
shirt.
challenge I'll give you on some of your feedback there, criticism on him, I'd go back and watch Empire and look at the way that Billy D changes his tone and the way that he speaks. And I don't think that what Donald Glover did was really all that out of character for Lando, because when Lando is schmoozing, he's very suave, has this deeper, richer voice, very smooth and elegant. But then as soon as he starts talking about Cloud City and Bespin, he has this very different aura to him, very more relaxed, and all the bravado is gone. It's just more of, this is real life. This is just how it works. And I caught that same type of feeling with Donald Glover with the way that he was working it. And so I think if you go back and watch Empire and you look for that dynamic, it'll sync up quite a bit with what we saw in Solo.
Yeah, I'll do that. Let's what do we got? We got Kira. Well, we've talked about Kira. So we'll skip her for now. And guys, don't forget, we're going to come back and really kind of do a deeper dive into
your
characters.
Ears bleed. So yeah.
Yep. You'll be sick of this show. I'm already sick of it. Tobias Beckett, Woody Harrelson.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you? I thought he was okay.
He was all right. Yeah.
He was all right. Yeah, he was solid. I mean, I'm not a Woody Harrelson fan, but I'm not a hater either. I think he's done some pretty good movies. I loved him in Cheers. But I don't know. I didn't really think he was that bad. And there was moments where I saw older Han at times, and I don't know if that was intentional or maybe I was just tired. But there was moments in the way he delivered some lines and some of the things he said and the way some of his inflection was. It seemed like it was Han. Like this is part of the mold that the Han that we know from the movies, the end of at least the original trilogy, Force Awakens. This is the prototype where he was cut from. So did you get that sense at all?
Yeah, I did, and some of it was the costume as well. The belt. I mean, he had like the way that Han wore his belt, and maybe this is just standard fare, so I might be off here, but that was still very similar to the overall style, except from having a more of a trench coat. He really modeled that style after him, where back on Corellia, he was kind of a street rat type of, so he didn't have all the duds, but still just the look as well. But yeah, the way that he addressed or that he picked up on things, but he was also more calculated in planning. He was willing to go straight outside the box, whereas Han, that's his MO. He does that pretty much all the time, shoot from the hip. But I thought he was an enjoyable character. There wasn't a whole lot to him. I was not real excited about the relationship with Val. Not that there was a relationship. It was just felt a little forced to me a little bit. And then when she died, he got over it. Now, granted, that's the movies. You get over it. You got to move the story along. You can't dwell on some of this, especially with these longer movies like this. You just don't have that opportunity. But yeah, I thought he did well. I thought it worked for the character, and it definitely was a nice counterpoint. And he had funny moments, like especially when he turns Han into the Imperials. That was a pretty good one as well.
I think for Tobias, and just going back to what you said about him and Val. I mean, you're kind of led to believe that they've been in this for a long time,
right?
At least I did, for whatever reason. And so you would think that their relationship has gone on for longer as well. And I guess he did seem heartbroken over her loss. But yeah, he just he kind of put his big boy pants on and just rolled with it. It didn't really seem to bother him after that so much. And they kind of tried to. It seemed like they at least try to bring it up, or he brought it up a few times after, maybe once or twice after that, or alluded to the fact that he was going to play the, what was it, a harp, or I forget, whatever musical instrument he was talking about. But anyways, I thought he was okay. He was good. I didn't have any really negative criticism. And especially at the very end, that whole double cross thing, when Han showed up and stopped him. It was a little anticlimactic. I thought there would be more to it. I like the fact that Han shot him and then he tells him, "Hey, you made the right move, kid, because I was going to kill you."
Yep.
That was kind of a sobering moment for me because it's funny.
Our theater cheered
when he shot him.
They did.
See, I had people laughing in ours, and I wasn't. I don't know. I wasn't there with me in the movie when he shot him. I was not expecting it. Up to that point, and maybe this is the turning point in the movie. Maybe this is the part of, or this is what was intended here. But up until that, I just didn't see that in Han. I didn't see that in his character, and that was his first lesson right there. That he knew at that point that this guy had already, double crossed him, and yep, I'm not gonna make the same mistake twice. But it was I took it as a very sobering moment, and there were people laughing in the theater when he shot him, and even laughing when Tobias Beckett was saying, "Hey, when he said you made the right choice, kid." That people were laughing at that too, and I'm like, I don't know that this is supposed to be funny here at this point. I think I don't know. Maybe
I had a similar reaction when they cheered. It snapped me out of it because I was like, oh man, yeah, he had the guts to do that. Now the Han we know now or in the future definitely would have done that. But you're right. It was one of these fool me once, and I'm not gonna get fooled again. And he's still young. And you start to see that now that hesitation is gone, right? So he's starting to shed some of that innocence that he the
good guy,
and he's going to live this life and he's going to be independent. And now you're in a survive mode, and those are the things that Beckett was telling him, right? So message received.
Yeah. Val and Rios, I lumped them together. So Thandie Newton and Jon Favreau, they really weren't. They were in the first act of the movie and. They didn't have a whole lot to go off of, but what'd you think?
I liked both characters. I thought Val's was interesting and not trusting and just well played and well acted. And then,
and she got to shoot Viper droids.
Dude, she did. Yeah. She was a bit of a badass. So that was fun. You get into the whole movie logic thing of why people do what they do. So we'll address that another time, but
yeah. I know what you're going there.
Rio was fun. A lot of Jon Favreau came through, and I wasn't totally sure if I liked that. I like Jon Favreau, don't get me wrong, but it was very much. But he was a fun character. It was sad to see him go so quickly because he was bringing a little of that levity to the show, and so and just kind of monkeying around, for lack of a better word. But he was a fun character. I enjoyed him, but at the end of the day, it just was a conduit for Han to get in the pilot seat.
Right. Yeah. Someone needed to take over. Yep. So, I thought they were both good. I thought Val, like Thandie Newton's, I love her, especially in Westworld. I don't know if you follow that show, but she's amazing in that. I think she's great. And there's a lot of potential there too. Like if they really want to go back and do, character stories for all of these guys or prior to Solo or, Beckett's team, Beckett's crew, there's definitely some material there.
One shot comic galore.
That's right. Yep. Another one.
I think we're getting one already, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. And Rio, it was cool. I thought he was funny. He wasn't really too over the top. As I was worried that he was going to be too much, another Jar Jar kind of thing. And I think Favreau played it pretty safe. And this is now his second role in a Star Wars. He was in Clone Wars I
can't remember who he was. It's off the top of my tongue.
Bounty hunter. Or the
Mandalorians. Yeah.
Can't remember his name. But anyways, so I thought both of them were really good. Let's talk L337. And I don't know if I put it in the updated show notes, but I put L337 and the Falcon. So, because they're kind of one and the same now.
Yeah, now they are, right? Yeah.
And it made me think when that happened. So that was not expected. I wasn't expecting that they would do that. But the minute they started talking about the plan, like, oh, let's, plug her into the hyperdrive or, upload her memory, that kind of thing. I thought, immediately came to mind was that line from 3PO saying, I don't know where your ship learned to speak, kind of thing. And it's funny now because he's talking to L337. So I wonder while he was talking to her, if she was trying to press her Liberation Front propaganda on him as well.
I kind of figured that's where we're going as soon as they started talking about her navigational brain. And that's why he never wiped her mind. But I'm still trying to reconcile what the three brains of the Falcon are. But clearly,
maybe we'll get 2 more.
Yeah, maybe we will. But clearly, the interactions that R2 and 3PO have later on, I could just imagine the conversations that they're having back and forth, and R2 probably having a lot of fun at 3PO's expense with L3. I thought L3 in general was a lot of fun. There was a balance there of turning people off with some of the, I don't even know what you would call it, but because I don't really want to call it anything, but the liberation speech, and those types of things. But the way that it came off was just so funny and just so much fun. And finding her true calling was just, it was so much fun to watch. And her interaction with Lando, and man, the awkward conversation between Kira and L3 was actually one of the best moments in the movie, I think.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
how does that work?
You start wondering,
it works.
Whoa, so Lando's had sex with this robot and vice versa, or but I don't think they have, because I think I got that far in Last Shot where I don't forget what she says. She makes a comment in Last Shot where that comes up, and she almost makes it like, no, gross, I would never do that kind of thing with Lando. So I don't think they've ever done it, but it is weird, and it makes it even more weird now because of Lobot. So
Lobot.
I don't know what's going on there now. I have to reevaluate that.
But the conversation was so odd. I mean, it was amusing. It was funny. It was caring. So it had the heart, type of thing there, and it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that one.
I'm seeing a lot of people now compare, who's better, L3 or K2, and they're very different.
So different.
To me. I don't know that I like. Yeah, I don't know that I like one more than the other. Especially their personalities are very different, and I like both of them a lot for different reasons. But I thought so going back to just her whole lot in life and her purpose in life, I thought that was pretty good. I thought she did a really good job talking to old Clint Howard in the cage there. It was good to see that guy again. He's so ugly. But it was good to see Clint Howard in there. It was good to see their interaction. And then, she never let up. She just kept going on and on about, one point she was popping the restraining bolts off the droids and freeing them. And she started this whole revolution. She was just like in her moment. And I thought that was all really cool stuff. There's one particular scene where that one robot's jumping up and down on top of the control panels. I was laughing out loud at that moment.
See, I was worried that one was getting a little too close to too campy.
Too far, yeah. I think they could have gone, like, honestly, again, this is one of those things where, like, to me, that was, those were fingerprints of Lord and Miller, and I can see where they could have taken that way further than what they did.
That's the one moment where I actually thought that's a legacy. It's great. That's a legacy part right there.
Yeah. I think they pulled it in, though. I mean, I don't think it got too out of hand, but there was certainly a lot of potential. It was just mayhem. It was like complete and total mayhem. And I could see where they really could have had a lot more fun with it if they really wanted to, but it would have, taken us out of the movie, I think, too much.
Yeah, I agree.
So, Dryden Voss, Paul Bettany, what'd you think of him? Why is his cheek red, or what the red lines are? Do we
think
know?
that's when he gets angry or excitable.
Well, I get that, but we never got the explanation, and that's okay. I actually kind of like not knowing everything going into a movie sometimes.
Yeah.
But what'd you think of the character?
I like Paul Bettany a lot, but it didn't really, I don't know. It fell flat for me. And these were all 100% reshoots, right? Because they had another kid.
Yeah, because I think originally it was someone, I forget who it was, but it was someone else.
Right, and then they had a scheduling conflict, so they brought Bettany in. I thought his performance was fine. I just didn't think the character had a whole lot to it. I mean, he was serious. I liked that he was able to switch it on and off between this, schmoozer, if you will, and then be a serious crime boss, in the next moment. And the whole idea of Crimson Dawn, I think, and we had spoken about in previous shows too, of this crime syndicate type of thing. And we got that flavor right off the bat with the text. This is the environment we're in. The Empire is still trying to take hold. So these types of things still exist. And I thought he did okay. Just the character really didn't do a lot for me.
I thought it was
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah, please.
I think it was effective. I get it. He fit the role, and I think he did well with what he had. I was hoping for more mafia boss or more Goodfellas, right? Because he got really close to being, holy moly, this guy's nuts and could go off at any moment. I think he got that across. He conveyed that, right? But I wasn't really terrified of him. And that's what I was hoping. I was hoping he was going to be like this, again, this mafia, Goodfellas, whatever mafia movie, crime movie you like, Scarface, whoever, where you just know they're completely nuts, even though they seem to have it all together at one moment. But in an instant, they could just become a cold-blooded murderer and, seem to be okay and relish in that. And I never got that from him. I never got that much from him, which I was hoping for. But again, I thought he was effective. I thought he did well in the role. I liked his quarters and all the little trinkets and stuff that we had.
Yeah, I've got to go back and pay more attention to all that.
Yeah, I mean, we had the skull from Han Solo and Lost Legacy that was sitting right there in that scene. There's, if you get the visual dictionary, or I think it's visual guide.
Visual guide,
it now. Yep. There's a whole two-page section on, all the stuff that's in
all those artifacts.
Dryden Voss's chambers. Yeah, there's a ton of stuff in there. Ricotta, I mentioned that in the Discord earlier. So anyways, but yeah.
And I think with him though, the reason why you've got to not let him go too far down that path is that if you're going to bring in his boss, then that one has to be all the more bad, right? Or all the more intense and all the more, whatever other synonym you want to use, that's the ultimate baddie, not this guy who ends up really just being more or less a puppet, maybe a useful one, but still a puppet or a lackey at the end of the day.
And speaking of which, so we've kind of talked about Maul already. My take is really not that much different. I will say that when Maul came out, I looked around the theater because I knew he was coming. Again, I'd already went into this movie pretty much spoiled beginning to end. But when that moment came up and I saw her put the key in, I immediately turned around and just watched the audience. And I will say, for at least in our audience, about I'm going to just go ahead and say 40% of the people all started talking the minute he popped up. Like they weren't really. There was the lady next to me. I heard her go, "Who is that?"
Right. Yeah, because they were just showing his metal foot, right?
Yeah. No, I'm saying when they actually showed him pull the hood off. Sorry, okay. I should have clarified that. When he pulled his hood back, there was people that were saying, I saw the lady next to me or 2 seats over reached over and was like, "Who is that?" Not to me, but to whoever she was with. I heard her say that, but everyone else started chattering. And so this was one of those moments where I think when we did the last show, there was a question about were we going to see anybody from previous movies or whatever. And I was like, I ain't saying anything. I think if you followed the Clone Wars and you followed Rebels or the comics and all that stuff, then this really isn't jarring. It's like, yeah, this makes complete and total sense.
Well, and
if you're not though, right. If all you've seen is the Phantom Menace, and I've got 2 friends at work that I spoke to today that saw it last night, and they came. One of them was almost literally waiting at my desk when I came into work. Because he wanted to know what the heck just happened because he had no context. Right. And it's weird because this is like the first Star Wars movie that I think that they've thrown in something like that where you're going to have to go look it up if you don't know because, you've got some questions now that need answers.
Yeah, this is new territory. This is the first time I can remember as well where we actually have something from the other mediums creeping into the movies. And so and we had this conversation with the guys I was with too. They were like, what is going on with Maul? Like, what don't we know? He was dead, right? So I briefly recapped, basically 8 years of TV where he was at, like within a few sentences. I was like, he's back like twice over, really. He's reinvented himself and he actually, survived and all this other thing. And they were like, wow, like I never would have realized that. And this is where I'm curious how well this goes over, where I think people are going to be really excited, but they're going to be totally lost as to what's going on and how much effort are they going to put in to go figure that out. And then,
if you've got 30 minutes, go ahead and burn it on Wikipedia and read up on what happened from the Phantom Menace to the Fall of Malachor.
But as a hardcore fan, now I'm like, oh my God, I got to go rewatch all of these shows to figure out exactly where we're at in the timeline. What is he doing? Like, what am I going to expect from this character if they do something else with this movie, or if they do a sequel, or if they do something else that Maul shows up in. And I want to go back and rewatch all of these now and to see where that was, because it's been a while since I've watched a lot of that, and they were really great episodes for the most part. And so I want to go back and revisit it and see it. Did they really mention Crimson Dawn? Because I'm having a hard time remembering if this is the first time we've heard Crimson Dawn or if this is something that's been around for a while.
Yeah, I mean, they mentioned the Syndicate. I don't know that we ever got Crimson Dawn, though.
I can't remember. It sounds familiar, but maybe it's just because it's a great, organization name. So no, it fits. It's a very Star Wars, gangster type of thing, right? It's better than Concha Club.
Yeah. Oh man, poor Concha Club. You really threw me off with that one because now all I hear is tell that to Concha Club. Anyways,
there's a first for everything, folks. Usually he's the one doing it.
Yeah, I know. There's so to get caught up, I mean, you really got to watch Clone Wars, and you got to hit the Maul, Son of Dathomir comic as well.
Yeah, we got a Dathomir name drop. That was fun.
Yep. So, I wanted, we're getting low on time here, but I wanted to talk about some other things too, like all the name drop stuff. Let's get through this. So Maul overall, again, Ray Park was the actor. Sam Witwer was the voice. The laugh was perfect. I think it threw a lot of people off, especially if all you've seen is the movies, which seems like a pretty solid argument that you shouldn't have to know what's happened if you've seen all the movies. You shouldn't have to go do more research, but sorry, you do. And I think it was cool to see his lightsaber. I think there's been some debate about why did he ignite it.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
See, and I think, for me, I really just think it's part of fear, right?
Show of force.
He's intimidated. He's trying, show of force. He's trying to intimidate her. He's trying to let her know that, hey, your boss is dead. I'm your boss now. This is what I have, and you've seen me use it before. You don't want to be next.
But we were so close to having a Star Wars movie with no force powers and no lightsabers, and they couldn't quite do it.
Not gonna do it.
Not gonna do it. Yeah, that was, man. Yeah, I don't even know what to say about it. It was cool to see it. They had the hilt was spot on. It was perfect too, which was a nice touch. But
yep, we'll get into more of that. I think we've already teased a Maul Part 2, or what I call it, Maul the Other Half show. No pun intended, but we'll probably do that at some point down the road here. So,
none of Mike has anything to say about it.
Right? We won't tell him.
We need to get into Enfys Nest, though.
Oh, we skipped over Enfys Nest. I don't even remember much about her. No, I'm kidding. So Erin Kellyman is the actress who plays Enfys Nest, and this is like, I put the little meme up of the guy. This is the Broom Boy. Now we're losing focus on Broom Boy. Everybody's focusing on Enfys Nest, but there is a ton of stuff that they could do with this character.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's sky's the limit, no pun intended here with her. But yeah, her look is awesome. I thought, Erin Kellyman did a pretty good job of acting. I mean, she didn't really have a whole lot to do. Right. But what she had to work with, I thought she did really well. I really, really like the idea that this was the prototype for the rebellion, or the prototype for Rebels. And that was one of the spoilers that when I read it, I was like, oh, this is going to be really cool. I don't know that it came off in execution as much as I liked, but just the concept of it all, the idea that this is where it started, and that Han literally fueled the rebellion in not knowing, I thought was a pretty cool little twist there. So
it was. This is we've had a couple of origin of rebellion stories in the past. Not many of them are canon now, but it was fun to see. This is the real seeds. These are the types of things that are happening all over the galaxy. It's not just this one place. So to say this is the birth of the rebellion is probably a little bit too hyper focused on this one particular event. But at the same time, these types of things are surfacing all over. And I agree. There wasn't a lot that she was doing throughout the movie, but I liked this character. I was surprised how much I really liked it. And we got we had discussed whether or not Enfys Nest was going to be a title that was passed on, and turns out it was. So we got, her mother was passed it on to her. So this seems to, I don't know if this is a bloodline within the tribe or anything like that, but so we got that flavor of it. It wasn't overkill, but it was a nice surprise that it was a young woman at that had this aura to her of strength, but also of goodwill and of fighting the oppression and the things that were going to them. I mean, there was a lot of focus on coaxium, right? Coaxium. So that got a little...
Yeah, it's the midichlorians.
Yeah, it got a little burdensome. I was a little burned out of hearing about it, but it's still, it kept the movie still going. But I really like this character. I haven't been able to put my finger on exactly why yet, but I like where it ended up. And so I'm excited to see what I think after another viewing.
Yeah, and I'd be really surprised if she comes back into these movies. I think she's probably going to show up elsewhere.
Yeah, books and comics is pretty much a guarantee, right?
Yep. And poor Erin Kelly, man, she hasn't even been able to.
She's not even doing the press tours.
She's nowhere. She's not press tours. I don't even think she was invited to the premiere. Like she wasn't there. I went and did some research, and I couldn't find any record that she was ever even there.
To keep it secret, I guess.
Yeah, took one for the team. So good on you, Erin Kelly.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, she's an awesome character design all the way through. So I thought it was really cool. Looking forward to that. And the Cloud Riders were cool. We didn't really get talked about them much, but we had two tubes.
Yeah, he was there somehow.
Yeah. Yeah, and I already forgot Warwick Davis's character.
I don't know.
Drawing a blank.
Rocket Man. We'll call him Rocket Man.
Rocket Man, yeah. But he's
had a speaking
character from.
Yeah.
Yeah, he actually had a line. That's right. After he loaded up the fuel there.
Big round of response in our crowd for that one too.
When he spoke, yeah. Well, it's Warwick Davis, so it's Willa. What else we got? I think that's it for the characters. We can skip over some of this other stuff because we're probably way over on time. Mike's going to kill us. So I guess let's just real quick. I want to just quick fire around. There were some other things that maybe we'll find some time to dive into, but there were a lot of like just name drops and Easter eggs. You had mention Felucia.
Yep.
Right. You had Aura Singh when Beckett says he pushed Aura Singh off and she fell to her death.
That was a surprise. Yeah.
It was a surprise. Val, when she was asking about, hey, we need more people, she drops Bosca's name.
That was a fun one. Yeah.
That was out of nowhere.
It was.
We talked about two tubes, the Terrascasi, which
that was my favorite one.
Martial arts site.
Yeah. That's the one I got my.
So that's a throwback to the old video game.
PlayStation game.
But Maul knows that. We know Maul has that background, that fighting background. Right. And so does, is it the Imperial Guards or is it the Praetorian? I think it's the Praetorian Guards are trained in Terrascasi as well. You got Han. He mentions when he's bluffing, saying his ship back home. He mentions the VCX 100. That's the same ship that the Ghost is. So same model there.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
Yeah, no, and it's just there was a ton of this stuff in there that they were just throwing left and right. And there was times when I couldn't keep up with it. Like they mentioned Boss's name, and I'm immediately going, okay, wait, Boss, how did he get involved in this? Or is he going to come back? Or and it was taking me out of it because I knew what they were talking about. And I think if you were a casual fan, you probably just wouldn't, enjoyed it a lot more.
It is curious they picked Bosk instead of Boba. Well, I guess Bosk at least had been part of a team for longer if you watch the Clone Wars shows more regularly, but still, Boba would have made people lose their mind too.
Yep. And they mentioned at the very end, he said that there was Tobias Beckett said that there was a big shot gangster, or he said, where are you going? It's Tatooine. He's like, what's on Tatooine? Right. And that's when we got our first, hint that Jabba was on Tatooine. Right. Although today in Facebook, there's an ad that's running right now. Have you seen this where they throw up the symbol, like Jabba's family symbol?
No.
Yeah. So if you go out to Facebook, or I don't remember which, I think I saw it on Instagram actually, but if you go to Star Wars, any of the social media feeds, and you go to the main Star Wars feed, there's a new like little promo for the movie, the fact that it's out, and it's throwing up these images like super fast, right? You can't even keep up with it. But there are two of them where they throw up is it the Kajidik symbol? I forget what it's called. But anyways, it's the family logo, the family crest, I guess, for the Hutts. Yep. And they throw it up twice in that little promo thing that they've got on social media right now.
Yeah, we'll have to see if we can.
So even though they don't mention,
we'll have to see if we can grab that and post it out there. That's interesting.
Yeah, I'll have to. Yeah, so it's interesting. Yeah, the fact that they threw it in this little ad, and yet he's really not mentioned, by name per se. So, but anything else? Any other Easter eggs? I think I probably may have covered a lot of them, but
there were a bunch. I mean, it's one of those things that we need the visual guide to really go through and uncover. I think most or all of them, and then just see the movie a few more times to see how many more we can catch that we can't log in our brains.
Yeah, there was. I just thought of another one too. The when Lando is doing his little video blog or vlog or whatever he's doing, he actually name drops like the old books by Neil Smith. So Mind Sharp of Sharu, Flame Wind of Ossian, and then the Star Cave of Thambaka. He mentions, and I didn't catch all the references, but in just that little 30-second video blog thing that he's making, he mentions all three of those books somehow. I know I heard Shrew, but I didn't hear the other one. So I'm going to have to go back at least on my second, third showing and focus in on what all he's saying there. But that was kind of a nice little Easter egg that they threw in there as well. Sorry, anything else before we get out of here?
No, let's touch on the soundtrack just real briefly, I think. Because this was something that we were really excited about with the trailer, different direction, different feel, and didn't really we got more of a traditional approach, I think.
Yeah, so I listened to the soundtrack. It came out today on the 25th, officially, and this is all I listened to at work today. I mean, it was nearly 9 hours straight of this thing, and I thought it's pretty good. There's like the Han Solo theme. When you hear it, you know it. When I was watching the movie, though, I heard it the first time and I thought, okay, this is his theme. And I don't know that I ever really picked up on it again. Right? I don't think I ever heard it again. And it was there. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it wasn't. But I won't go so far as to say it wasn't memorable because I don't think that's fair after only one showing. But it didn't stick with me for whatever reason. The stuff for like Infest Nest, that was pretty... Like, when that comes up, it's very unique. Almost like this, I don't know, Indian or I don't know what influence it was, but it had a very like tribal kind of feel to it. Yeah. That one's pretty good. But I will say this, it's track 15 called Reminiscence Therapy.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That is like, I think it may be my favorite Star Wars track now. If it's not my number one, it's way up there because what he did is he brought together all of these really cool themes and songs from Empire, Jedi, and mashed them together into one 6-minute song. But if you get a chance, go listen to it. Let me know what you think. I thought it's great. I think it's really like all the best. It was almost like he spliced together the best parts of all these different songs and put them into this one thing. It's got a lot of adrenaline. It's pretty quick. And then it just kind of teeters off at the very end. It gets a little bit slow, but it's a really great piece. Overall, I think the soundtrack did well. I think it was effective. I think it got lost for me in the movie. And again, I think it's only because I've seen it once. I think when I go back a second, third time, I'll probably focus more on it.
Well, it was more present at the beginning of the movie, and it wasn't really working for me at the beginning of the movie. But as it went on, I actually did stop and think. I mean, partly because you're hearing the cues from the previous movies, right? Which gets you excited. It's familiar, action-packed, that type of thing. But the more I thought about it, I was like, the music really is just blending and fitting in, which is, again, another compliment for John Powell that these things are just seamlessly integrating with what we're watching to where it's as much part of the experience as of what you're watching and what you're seeing in front of you. And so I'm with you. I want to see, when I see this again, I want to see if the music becomes more prevalent to me outside of the beginning where it was a little calmer and you had the more sweeping tones of some of these other themes that they were establishing for Han and Kira and things like that. And, or if the rest of it's going to fit as well, or if I'm going to notice it more or less. So I'm excited about that. I only got to do the little Amazon previews. I didn't get to listen to the entire tracks yet, but I always buy the album. So it's just a matter of time. So I'll do that and plug it into the car and go to town on it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the other one that stood out is Chicken in the Pot. So that was
in a language we don't even know what the language is.
Yeah. No, I'm kidding. That's actually my least favorite. I didn't really care for that song, but I thought it was a funny name. And now it's canon. Chicken in the Pot.
There you go.
What else we got? I think that's it. We'll probably end it here. Any kind of final last impressions, last thoughts from you before we go?
No, again, solid movie. Interested to see what a second viewing does for it. See if it's... Usually when I see movies more than one time, very rarely do they get better for me. These movies are a little bit different because of the interest level, I think, mostly. But being able to catch more, what did I miss? Are there aspects of the movie that I want to... And usually when people tell me they're processing things, usually that means they're trying to they're trying to figure out a way to make them enjoy the movie more than what they probably already did. And so I'm not processing. I just want to see it again to see if I have the same experience or not. And more so than trying to make sure I understand it any better, because your first impression, I don't know, is usually pretty sound. And over time, usually you might find things that you do enjoy better or you understand better, and that can help your enjoyment of the film. But oftentimes the nitpicky things will grow. So thankfully, I didn't really have a lot of nitpicky things. So I'm interested to see if it just improves, what I kind of think about it today. And I'll actually say, yeah, I think I really do enjoy this movie. So instead of a solid grade, I'll give it a great grade or something. But I think it'll probably pull right back where I thought it was.
Yep. Yeah. And so I think for my final thoughts, just quickly, I really enjoyed the movie. It was a lot of fun. And again, I sincerely and genuinely say that it was a very fun movie to watch, beginning to end. It's got some bumps, but again, in the vein of Han Solo himself, I think in the end, everything's all right. We get through all of it and come out pretty happy on the other end. I'm excited about seeing this movie with my kids. To be honest, like I really think they're going to enjoy this movie a lot more than I did, which is a good thing. And to a lot of the people that I've spoken to today that didn't go see it or maybe on the fence of seeing it, what I've been telling them is I think it's worth an admission. I think it's worth going to see in the movie theater.
I agree.
Don't put this off. Pass it along. If you feel the same way, tell people to go see it in the theater. Don't pass it up. Don't wait for home release or DVD, Blu-ray or whatever it is. This is definitely worth going to see in the theater.
And these are the types of movies. You're absolutely right. These are the types of movies that excel in the theater. All of these big budget ones are made for seeing in the theater with a room packed full of people. You get these cheers or these, whatever else is going on. You got to see it. And again, it's difficult to capture that moment at home. So I'm actually a little bit worried about my family seeing it because they're not as hardcore Star Wars as I am. And my daughter only likes a very limited part of Star Wars still. She's 8. So it's a long movie. So I'm nervous. Again, I'm nervous for them now, where I was nervous for my friends previously. Now I'm nervous for my family. So I'm going to have to go watch this thing by myself, I think, at some point, so I can just stop thinking about everybody else around me. So I watch the darn movie.
Right. Yep. All right. Well, I guess with that, we will end it. And just kind of looking ahead, I think we're going to be coming back for our next show. What are we doing?
We've got a Canteen After Dark in the works. So we'll do that with Mr. Rondeau, which is exciting. Mike's got some other video logs he's going to be posting on Patreon here soon. So if you're not a Patreon, love for you guys to go check that out. See if there's something on there you might enjoy. Canteen After Dark is a lot of fun. So hope we do that. But then, next shows. What's our slate looking like?
Well, I think we're either going to do a listener feedback show or we may just start diving into the character stuff like with Han and Chewie. So I guess we'll kind of play that by ear. But I think we've got listener feedback is what we had on the calendar anyway. So
all right.
We'll start advertising, getting that out. And then we've got, like I said, Han and Chewie. We'll be talking about all the characters in much more depth. Lando, Kira, Beckett, Enfys Nest, and all that. So look forward to that very soon.
Yeah. And then don't forget June 16th, we've got the Keep Cantina Cast Weird out in Austin. Albert and I are going to meet up with some folks out there, go watch the movie in June and have a great time. So we'd love to see anybody that might be in the area or wants to take a day trip out there.
Yeah. And we've got a few people now, I think, chalked up to come that are coming out. So that's great. We're not expecting a huge, group of people only because we put this out 45 days before, and it's summertime. We get it. Everybody's busy. We got Celebration next week. We got Celebration next year that we're all saving up for. But yeah, if you're in the area and you want to come out and just hang out with us and watch the movie, get some food and drinks and all that, that'd be a lot of fun. We'd love to see you. So that's on our social media pages, and I think we'll plug it in the show notes on this one as well. So anything else before we go?
No, I think that's it. Looking forward to everyone's thoughts on the movie. Keep sending them in to us.
Yep. And if you need to find us, we're on Instagram at the Cantina Cast, on Twitter at the Cantina Cast, Facebook /the Cantina Cast. You can shoot us a fan mail at cantinacastfanmail@gmail.com. Please keep up the good reviews and feedback if it's warranted. If you feel like it's worthy, please do so. We do appreciate that a whole heck of a lot. So that's it for us. We will be back here next week with another show. Thanks for joining, and go see the movie if you haven't already seen it.
You're still listening? Wow. That's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.